Raymond Ibrahim is a best-selling author, historian, and Middle East analyst specializing in Islam, jihad ideology, and Christian persecution.
The first crusade, again, the big lie nobody tells you, is right before it was a really new iteration, was the Seljuk Turks. And what they were doing to Christians was horrific.
A former U.S. Library of Congress scholar fluent in Arabic, he's written multiple best-selling books and hundreds of articles examining the theological and historical foundations of Islamist movements. And on today's episode, we will cover the doctrinal roots of jihad.
This is an open-ended command. It says, fight the polytheists wherever you find them, lay in wait, ambush them, kill them, take them as slaves.
The historical continuity between ancient conquest and modern terrorist movements, what's really destabilizing Europe, not just mass migration, but ideological migration. Why parallel societies are forming, why has assimilation collapsed, and why are governments pretending none of this is a concern. We're also going to unpack why countries like the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia officially classify the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization, while the United States and the United Kingdom don't. Raymond Ibrahim is here to explain how we got here and where this road leads. Well, first of all, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jillian. Very happy to be with you.
I've seen a lot of your podcasts recently, and I got to be honest, it's shaken me up quite a bit. So off the top, I just want to jump right in here. I have a lot of questions, and I want to start with this one. So when you're translating these original jihadist texts from the Quran, what's the most disturbing thing you've read that you think the vast majority of Westerners have absolutely no idea about?
Yeah, that's a great question because I come from that academic background where we were, now I see it as indoctrinated into believing Islam is this wonderful religion of peace, et cetera, et cetera. And then I was working at the Library of Congress with all these, texts coming from the Islamic world and so forth. And long story short, this actually is related to my first book, which was the Al-Qaeda Reader. I came across writings by Al-Qaeda in Arabic that had never been translated, and they were just laying around in the Library of Congress because the Library of Congress has all these books from all around the world just laying around in bins. Serious? And yeah, and I started reading them. I was at Georgetown University, so I was very much involved in that field.
Right.
And I had believed what everyone was telling us, which is this, what Al-Qaeda had said is, we're attacking you because you attacked us. It was a grievance narrative, okay?
Of course, everyone saw the freaking Bin Laden letter on TikTok, the great Satan has done this to our people. You haven't, let's not forget. That's the narrative, is the evil imperialist West.
And it made sense in the context of what I had been learning in college and in what he was saying and what Western news media was kind of confirming what he was saying. So the shock for me was then to go and read the Arabic texts. And just to give you a little more context, right before that, I was finishing my master's degree, and I had written it about the first pivotal battle between Islam and the West. This is before 9/11. It actually came out right around 9/11, okay? And so I was immersed in a historical thing, and I knew there was this jihad and conquest going on. But I, too, had assumed, this is kind of like, this is the modern world. It's not really happening anymore.
Forgive me. When you say the first clash between radical Islam and the West, what timeline then are you talking about if it's pre-9/11?
Oh, well, hopefully we can get into that, the actual history. So the first major clash, which I wrote about, was my master's thesis with Victor Davis Hanson. I know you had him on. Yeah.
So much.
So it was with him. This is back in the late 90s.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. And I was just making, to be a history major, you want to make uses of languages. And I knew Arabic, and I was studying classical Greek. So I looked at the Byzantine and Islamic nexus in the 7th century. And I started writing about that first major battle. It's the Battle of Yarmouk, which became my thesis, okay? And that had jihad, okay? And then but now I'm learning about this guy, Bin Laden. He did 9/11, and he's telling us it's because of what you do. And the Western media is supporting him. Okay, so that's the backdrop. Then I get all these Arabic texts written by Ayman Zawahiri, who became actually the leader after bin Laden was killed, and he was the number 2 man at the time, and also by Osama bin Laden. And when I read them, these are now written to Arabs and Muslims in Arabic. Westerners are not supposed to be privy to this. It was. Are you familiar with the ISIS approach, which is, no, we hate you because you're an infidel?
Yes,
that's not what they said, Al-Qaeda. They said, no, this is a religious thing. yeah, we're telling them it's about grievances, and we're trying to demoralize them, and we're trying to make use of the useful idiots amongst them. But no, we hate them on principle. This is what the Quran teaches. We have to do jihad, etc., etc. So I think that was the first, not so much of it wasn't a shocker because I've always known Islam does teach that. It was a shocker kind of to see how much deception was going on, both by Al-Qaeda and being enabled by the West.
Okay, this is Taqiyya, this deception?
This is one of this is the broadest term that is sort of used for it. And it's so the problem is, it's not just Taqiyya. There's a lot of different forms of deception and just deception in general. Muhammad, in a canonical hadith or saying, said, war is deceit. And guess what? The infidel, you're always at war with him one way or the other. So that's almost like a blanket statement that you can always deceive the infidel, okay? And there's so many intricate doctrines that allow deception. One is called Tawriyya. And you know what this is? So it's legitimate for a Muslim to do this. Let's say you ask me, you want to borrow $20. Okay. And I say, I don't have a dime in my pocket. Now you're going to assume I have no money. But if I have a $20 bill and I don't have a dime in my pocket, I didn't lie to you. Oh. And I see this all the time, okay? Where Muslims will speak. It's like a double kind of speak, and you as the non-Muslim who's not familiar with the context will think they're saying something kind of peaceful, but it actually, to Muslims, it's messaging something different.
Okay, before we get into the history of this, it's important to establish, and I try to establish this element every time I engage in conversations about radical Islam. You got billions of Muslims, and the vast majority are lovely people. In fact, I believe you yourself, I have Muslim friends. Everybody tells me I have incredible Muslim friends that comes on and talks to me about radical Islam. Every single person. It could be Gad Saad. It could be Brigitte Gabriel. It could be Dr. Nazarian. Every single person who has escaped the Middle East and ran from radical Islam is like, I have incredible Muslim friends. So
yeah, we have to iron this out.
Okay, so explain to me. I appreciate that we're going to get into the history of Muhammad, Islam, the Quran, the Jihad verses and all of that, but why then are 1.8 billion Muslims awesome, and then a couple 100 million are not? What is the difference? It's the same book, same religion.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, we can spend the rest of this talking
about
this.
No one can actually answer it for me. I've asked now pretty much everyone. No one can tell me that. No one. I've asked Muslims. I've asked everyone. I've asked everyone. No one actually has that answer. They're like, well, they just, they're good people. I've heard everything from, well, those Muslims don't read the Quran. I'm like, well, that seems unlikely. Well, those Muslims are just good people, and they kind of ignore those verses, just like Christians ignore parts of the Old Testament. We all do that. And I'm like, yeah, but all Christians ignore the parts of the Old Testament. So we're still back to the thing.
No. I get it. No. Allow me to elucidate.
Please.
Okay?
Yeah.
So let me unpack this. So first thing you got to do is differentiate between the religion and the people. And I would argue this is how you have to approach all religions. Okay? There's what a religion teaches, and then there's what the people do. Okay? Islam, and I've noticed you use the term radical Islam. Okay? There is no radical Islam. Islam is Islam. The stuff that we call radical is just part and parcel of Islam. Has always been. We call it radical because it just, we've somehow reached this point where we think history has ended and everyone thinks the way we do, and the natural culmination of all civilizations is to become like us. Just provide them with enough material means, and and everyone's going to rise above it. Okay, that's sort of, I think, Western arrogance, but Islam is a coherent body of teachings. It's very clear. It's very black and white. It's not mysterious. I'm talking specifically of Sunni Islam, which accounts for 90% of the Islamic world. Okay? It's a legalistic religion. It's not mystical in any way, shape, or form. According to Islam, every action a human can engage in is categorized as either forbidden, disliked, meaning you shouldn't do it. It's not necessarily going to go to hell for it, but neutral. Okay, whatever. Recommended. We'd like you to do it, but you don't have to do it. And obligatory, all right? Every single action in this life. It's a very totalitarian system. That's what Sharia is. And if I forget, we really need to talk about Sharia because it's in the news, and there's some input I'd like to say about that. But now, if you look at the religion, some of the stuff that we like to call radical or try to present as aberrant amongst Muslims is actually 100% mainstream. All right.
This can't be possible.
No. It is possible, but we'll get into the moderates.
Like I go to Dubai and they can go out with my wife.
We'll address.
But then
that.
you go to Iran and someone's hair's showing and they get the crap beat out of them. I cannot reconcile these two Muslim worlds.
Patience.
Okay, boss. Okay. Hold on.
No,
because
let
me just really
because
put
this
the questions
is
aside
because
for now.
this is a thorny issue. Okay, so the religion, Sunni mainstream Islam. Okay, for example, it allows polygamy. That's not open to debate.
Okay.
The Quran talks about how you can, punish your wife by beating her.
Yes.
Okay. Number 2. Concubinage, right? Sex slaves. This is in the Quran.
Yeah.
And it's important. Okay, real quick segue, because you mentioned, the Bible, the Old Testament.
That's the comeback.
And they do that, and Christians have risen above it. Okay, here's the difference. It's a very interesting difference. I wrote about this like 20 years ago. If you look at the old, let's stick with the Old Testament because that's what they talk about.
Yeah.
Slavery.
All
Slavery, war, genocide, Joshua, all that sort of thing as it's presented. If you look at the actual text, the way it's written, okay, so God commands Joshua and, the Israelites or the Hebrews to go to war, and he mentions the names of the people, the Jebusites, the Hebusites, the Canaanites, etc., etc. And the language is very temporal. It's finite. It's not open-ended. It's almost in the past tense. They fought them and that was it. Now, if you go to the Quran, okay, and guess what? Even though their enemies were actually identifiable personages throughout history, the Persians, the Zoroastrians, the Christian Byzantines, and so forth, it doesn't use that word. It uses generally the word the kafir, which can be translated as infidel or mushrik, okay? Like there's a lot of words. And the language is, when you read the Quran, it's in the present tense, okay? So fight the people, fight the kafir, fight the people of the book, Christians and Jews, fight. It's a constant open-ended commandment. Whereas the Old Testament, it's recording a historical account. God said to them, fight that group of people in that group, that area at that point of time. So it never got codified into some sort of a vision for Jews or Christians that you have to be at war with everyone. The Quran is very different. The language is very transcendent and above and beyond the finite moment. And so it got codified, that's what Sharia law is, as a worldview. So the most standard thing in Islamic teaching is you have two worlds. You have, in Arabic, it's called Dar al-Islam, which can be translated as the land or abode of Islam. Okay. This is wherever Sharia controls, right? And then you have the rest of the world is Dar al-Harb. Harb means war. The land where we wage war until we bring them into our land, okay?
Of Islam.
Yeah, and historically, people don't understand this, that they, at least for the Muslim side, they were at such odds and at war with the rest of the world that if you were a European, okay, and for whatever reason there was a delegation being sent to talk to a sultan, he had to get an actual permit before he entered the Islamic world, because if he didn't, he would get killed and enslaved instantly because you are the de facto enemy. That's how it was historically. We haven't even gotten into the jihad and what it did to the Western world, okay? But, okay, I digress. So Islam, when you hear all this stuff about, this is radical, this is not, jihad is not radical. Jihad, and we'll get into the history, has been integral to Islam. Always has been.
Since inception.
Okay? And, the attacks on free speech and religious freedom. So, for example, attacks on the blasphemer, someone who speaks against Muhammad, and that which goes on all the time today. Right. Okay, that is completely part of Islam. Always has been. Attacking and possibly even killing the apostate who wants to leave Islam. Muhammad himself is on record saying whoever leaves his religion, kill him. Okay, so that's the religion. Now, does that mean, what is it, almost 2 billion Muslims now? They all follow it? And this is where the analogy that you mentioned, I agree with, which is, yes, look at Christianity and Judaism, Buddhism and Hinduism, of course, don't have these sort of draconian worldviews. But it is true that if I look at Christians and any other group, well, a lot of them don't follow any of their religion. So to me, what I'm trying to say is moderate Muslims, and I don't care for that word, and I don't care for the word radical, because radical Muslims are not radical. What they are is observant, pious Muslims. And what we call moderate are lackadaisical Muslims, easygoing, secular, cultural Muslims, where, we do the Ramadan thing, we have a feast, we go to the mosque once in a while, that sort of thing. Some don't even do any of that. So, but in no way, shape, or form do these moderate Muslims, as we call them, who do exist, they are not representative of Islam. Okay, and that's the whole point. Same thing you can say about, like I said, Christians and Jews. And I mean, look, in Judaism, you have the Orthodox Jews, you have the secular or, Reformed, and obviously one will say one's not doing it the right way, for example, right?
Of course.
Yeah. So the text, the teaching is what it is. It is by any measure what we would call radical and disturbing and draconian. The punishments and the amputations and the whipping, that's all part of Islam. Why? And if you want, we can get into it, but because it's part of what's called Sharia law. And Sharia law is based on the literal words of the Quran, which are believed to be from Allah, and Muhammad's words and deeds, which are many. And in the Quran says you have a perfect example in Muhammad, and you have to follow him. Okay? And just to show you what I'm talking about, in the Quran, for example, there's this doctrine, which to me, so you were asking me earlier, what's the most problematic thing? One was, of course, the shock at, this disconnect between what Muslims were really up to with the Al-Qaeda and what Westerners, how, not only were they clueless, but they were actually disseminating their lies. But the other one was this doctrine that even until now, no one really wants to talk about. People will talk about jihad. To me, the most problematic doctrine in Arabic, it's called al-wala wal-bara. And these two words can be translated in various ways. They can be called loyalty and enmity. Some Muslims translate them as love and hate, which is actually pretty good.
Okay.
And with this doctrine, which is in the Quran, teaches Muslims must only be loyal to fellow Muslims, the ummah.
Yes.
Okay, they are their only friends. And the non-Muslims, you have to hate them. Okay, and it even says, even if they're your fathers and your brothers and your wives. I translated a video of a popular Egyptian cleric, it's on my YouTube channel, who says,
I've seen this.
No, you've seen it.
I've seen it on your channel, but please tell the audience.
Yeah, where he basically says, and this is because of the teaching of the hatred for non-Muslims, Islam allows Muslim men to marry Christian women and Jews because they're the people of the book. But it's also interesting because, of course, a Christian man can't marry a Muslim woman. Why? Because, of course, they see it from a purely patriarchal worldview, which is, okay, as long as the woman is the infidel, who cares? She's subjugated. Anyway, that's why you can't have a male Christian or Jew married to a Muslim, because you can't have a Muslim being subjugated, right? But so he says, even though that's a legit, you have to hate her in your heart and show her you hate her. And he says you can enjoy her sexually, you can enjoy her whatever way, but make sure she knows you hate her.
على حب أهل الكتاب بجواز الزواج من الكتابيات. كيف يتزوجها وهو يكرهها؟ إيه المانع يعني؟ كل الناس بتحب زوجاتهم. كم من الناس بينهم خلافات وعايشين. ومع ذلك فهو قد يحب شكلها، أو يحب تربيتها للأولاد، أو يحب أن عندها مال، ولذلك يكره أن يتزوج الكتابية لأنها ليست ذات دين، وهو مأمور بأن يبغضها على دينها مع بقائه في معاشرتها. وهذا أمر معتاد جدا. أقول لك، كل من يغتصب امرأة بيحبها ولا يعاشرها فقط؟ يعاشرها من أجل جسدها فقط، ولا يحبها في الحقيقة. ومع ذلك لأنه لو كان كذلك لما آذاها. ومع ذلك فيمكن وجود المعاشرة الجنسية دون حب. فهذا ممكن، ومأمور هو كما ذكرنا بأن يبغضها، فتترك النصوص القاطعة.
Okay. And here we go to the moderate thing. Even in the audience, because he's preaching, some Muslims find it hard to reconcile these are who we would call moderates. But he says it's in the Quran. And it is in the Quran. Okay, there's Quran Surah 60 verse 4 says Ibrahim, who's Abraham from Genesis. Islam appropriates a lot of these biblical characters. Says. So the Genesis account, God calls Abraham and he leaves the land of Ur, okay? And that's the end of it. In the Islamic account, not only does he do that, but he tells his former kinsmen, and until you believe in God, Allah, hatred will reign between us forever, all right? And the Quran talks about how these early pious Muslims, including the first Caliph, Abu Bakr, and Omar, the followers of Muhammad, in wars tried to kill their own relatives, and they did kill their own relatives. So the whole point is loyalty belongs exclusively to fellow Muslims. It's what Muhammad did, as I always say, the genius of Muhammad is he took the tribal mores of his world, 7th century Arabia, and re-articulated them through a theological paradigm, which made them so powerful. So now normal tribalism, which we understand, is, me and my people, and you're the outsider, you're the enemy. But now it's no longer my race or culture. It's the ummah, it's Islam working together as a body, and everyone's the other tribe, and we're at war with them one way or the other. Okay, so that's Islam. Now, going back to the moderate thing, just because that's what the religion teaches, okay, you have a whole host of people. Remember, Muslims, like most people, are born into the religion. It's not like most people, it's not like Muslims automatically convert.
Sure.
I'm just born into this.
Yep.
Depending on who I am, the kind of person I am, either I won't. A lot of Muslims honestly don't even know a lot of this stuff, and the clerics try to hide it for them because it will turn a lot.
Know.
A lot of them don't.
They will tell me, and I have believed this for quite some time. It was actually Carl Higbee. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. Navy SEAL, served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and he's read the Quran. And he was talking to me about the Muslim Brotherhood being banned from buying land in Texas, and how Arab countries like Saudi and UAE have labeled this group a terror group, but the United States hasn't and the UK hasn't. And I'm like, but the Quran is so peaceful. It's the most peaceful religion. And he goes, have you read the Quran? And I was like, but just all my friends who are Muslim have told me we're the most peaceful religion. I just believed them. And then all of a sudden I read parts of the Quran and I was freaked out.
Yeah.
Freaked out. Especially when you have the mayor of New York swearing in on the Quran. Because it's one thing to be like, well, you're a kid, you were born into the religion, you're the moderate guy, you're the good guy, you're like all my Muslim friends. But then you swear in on the Quran, and I'm going to presume you've read it. And that's when I started to say, like, okay, hold on. We've got Ilhan Omar. She hates America. She's clear about it. You've got Omar Fateh, who almost became, I believe, mayor of Minneapolis. Was it? But then he got caught in fraud. He didn't make it. You've got Mamdani, who's now mayor of New York. You've got the guy who's running, I think, Dearborn, Michigan, who's terrifying. And you're seeing
Rashida Tlaib. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're seeing it now in the UK.
No.
So, like now you have all of these different mayors who are Muslim, and they're only loyal to the Ummah.
Because you are a bigot, and you are a racist, and you are an Islamophobe. And although you live here, I want you to know as mayor, you are not welcome here. And the day you move out of the city will be the day that I launch a parade celebrating the fact that you moved out of the city. Because you are not somebody who believes in coexistence. You're somebody who tries to preach it, but in fact, you do everything but that. So I just want to put that on the record.
And I'm sitting back going, I feel like we need to be really paying attention. And the Islamophobe thing is quick to shut you down.
Well, that's what it was created for. But to really underscore the swearing on the Quran, I mean, people can't. It's, to me, surreal if you really understand what's going on. To most people, it's his religion, and why? Well, of course, he can pick his Quran. Why does it have to be the Bible? But what's really going on is, okay, first of all, and especially this fellow, Mamdani, I forget the name of one of these famous radical clerics that he said mentored him or whatever.
Yes, I remember. I can't remember that name either.
Well, there's several of them who have said problematic things, who are you would call radical, and who are radical. But one of them said a very interesting thing that most Americans did not understand because they translated in English, but I know translated in Arabic what it is. And he was complaining about, America rules with man-made laws that are other than Sharia. That phrase, other than Sharia, in Arabic is actually based on the Quran. And it's anyone who says that is basically the kind of Muslim who hates democracy, hates everything, and wants Sharia. This is his mentor. So now think about this. The guy who's swearing allegiance to the Constitution is putting his hand on a book that is dedicated to the overthrow of any man-made laws and that teaches, as I said, hatred for infidels, being allied only with Muslims, that's full of descriptions of beheading and crucifying and torturing the infidel. And he's swearing on that to uphold the law to protect the infidels. Okay, so, and again, remember I was telling you about this concept of Tawreya, where there's a double kind of concept speak. I'm sure when he has his hand on that Quran, on the one hand, I'm showing you infidels. I'm swearing to you guys. But I really wonder, what is it he's really swearing in his mind?
Right. That's when he swore on the Quran, and I had some idea of what was in there.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, now I'm freaked out. And it was the, in addition, at first I thought, why are we not attacking his policies? We're getting roped into the fact that he's Muslim because, you know, then they could tell us, like, we you know, distract from how bad his policies are. And then there's a rap song that he has where he's
I didn't know he was a rapper till recently.
Paying allegiance to the Holy Land Five, I guess, were the guys that went to jail after 9/11 and sent funds to terror groups. And you're like, wait, hold on. So let's.
And he has a picture flipping off Christopher Columbus.
Right.
Which, I mean, you know, this seems mild, but think about what that means. Like, the civilization that I migrated to and has elevated me to the mayorship or mayorhood, I'm flipping it off without ever in any way, shape, or form acknowledging, or because they did bad things, without recognizing that my history and heritage, Islam, has done a lot worse.
Right.
Okay. So, you know, but then, you know, to me, honestly, everything we're saying is correct and of concern. But to me, the greatest concern is that we're so stupid that we let this sort of thing happen without even thinking about it. Okay?
We think about it. The problem are all the young kids that want free buses and have no idea. And to be honest, have been told by all their Muslim friends, probably like I have been for 30 years, that it's the most peaceful religion. So you're like, yeah, and I love my friend, so I believe it. There were... Anyway, okay.
So to give you an idea, you know why a lot of this happens in America, by the way? Remember I was telling you there's two abodes, the land of Islam and the Lode, which have to be at war. Many people, okay, you see a lot of Muslims flooding the West. Do you know that according to Sharia, Muslims are banned from voluntarily going to live under infidel authority? Why would you do that? For the good life? That's not good enough. So the only caveat that allows Muslims to go and migrate and still be Muslims is if in some form or other you're trying to help spread Islam. Okay, so if I come and live amongst the infidels and I do what you're describing, telling you, the holy books is great, and I try to convert you, or I try to help the image. Jihad has all these different categories. It's not just physical. There's jihad of the tongue, which means propaganda. Jihad of the pen, which means also propaganda. Jihad of the money. Okay, and so they are as long as they're engaged in that kind of jihad of the womb, demography. They encourage Muslims to go have as many babies as you can in the West. These are all forms of jihad, because jihad means it's not necessarily warfare. That's its primary manifestation, but it means it's struggling to empower Islam against the land of the infidel. So any good Muslim who is in the West is to some degree involved in this. That's the only way they can justify being in the West. If they just came here and are living under infidel authority because I want the good life, they're actually breaking Islamic rules.
So you're telling me Ilhan Omar is breaking Islamic rules when she, was taken in as a refugee from Somalia as a child, and professes to be fantastic.
No, she's not breaking the rules as long as in her heart I'm helping Islam somehow.
She clearly is. Actually, she makes that very clear. Yep. Okay, so I want to let's go back to the beginning. Here's my understanding of this. It's like 600 AD. Jews and Christians have been around for 600 years at this point. Jews for I don't even know how many thousands of years, how many millennia. And all of a sudden there's Muhammad. And he hears from the angel Gabriel. And Gabriel tells this guy, start a new religion called Islam?
Well, not a new religion in the Islamic understanding. The Islamic understanding is Muhammad is bringing back the correct religion which these Jews and Christians had but ruined it. Okay, so God had that's why Abraham and Moses and Noah and Jesus are prophets. Okay, so they are, they're part of the canon of religion. But Jews and Christians ruined it by rewriting scriptures. So the Jewish scriptures, the New Testament have been tampered with. Okay, so for example, Muslims believe Jesus. It's amazing. They believe he was born of a virgin and he performed miracles, and he's going to come on Judgment Day. But the idea that he died and that he was crucified, or that he's the Son of God, or that he was resurrected, that's anathema to them. Okay, so why do Christians say that? Because Christians lied and they rewrote it. So Muhammad's coming back to bring the world back to the original, untainted, unvarnished religion that started all the way back with Abraham or even Noah. okay, or even Adam and Eve. They have Adam actually, and that's so it's not a new religion. He's bringing it back to its pristine form. And just one final thought, since I'm talking about this because it's related. The idea, it's just, okay, so Judaism and Christianity are obviously interconnected organically, okay?
Sure, because Jesus was a Jew.
Exactly.
And then when the people who followed him became Christians.
Right.
Got it.
And, I mean, obviously there's the difference. But, so for example, if you look at the Bible, the Christian Bible, what we call the Old Testament, the Jewish scriptures, they are exactly as the Hebrews wrote them, okay? So Christians didn't rewrite them. Right. Now, what Muhammad did is he appropriated all these guys, all these historical figures from, from antiquity, so he can validate his new movement and say, yeah, I'm part of this whole thing. But then he rewrote everything about them. He didn't rewrite it, but I mean, the Islamic narrative, what he said and what came out in the Quran and in the Hadith, led to a completely recasting of all these characters, okay? So, for example, I told you in the end day, Jesus comes back, which is consistent with Christian eschatology.
Okay. Got it.
But he comes back to break the cross and kill all the pigs. to abrogate jizya is a tax that Christians and Jews are supposed to pay not to get killed. And to abrogate that, which means at this point now, if you're a Christian Jew, you either convert or die. So that's the Islamic Jesus, Isa. Okay, and I already gave you an example of Ibrahim, who, he is now used by Muslims to justify hating non-Muslims. Because Ibrahim supposedly in the Quran told his people, we hate you and there's nothing going to be between us except war and hate until you become Muslims. Okay, so basically Muhammad took all these, he appropriated these characters, recast them to validate himself, and that's why when people say, the Abrahamic religions and they try to put Islam in, and actually it makes it worse, because there is no bridge. It's like, I'll give you a final analogy, because for all these people, and I get tired of it, the whole bridge thing and Islam and, we share the same biblical characters. Here's what it's really like. Imagine someone telling you, let's say you have a beloved grandfather who you knew, and then I come out of nowhere and I tell you, hey, that's my grandfather too. Okay, that sounds, it sounds like I'm ingratiating myself, but then I tell you, and everything you know about him is wrong. It's what I know, okay? Now, is that going to create a bridge, or is that going to create conflict?
Right, of course.
Right?
I see what you're saying. So, now the beginning, early Muhammad gets no traction.
Yeah.
And he's in Mecca at this point? Okay. And that's in Saudi Arabia. Okay. And he gets no traction, and I believe and this is the peaceful Muhammad.
Yeah. Yeah, you want me to talk about that dichotomy?
Yes, please, because then people will quote those things, but it's my understanding that the stuff that comes later invalidates the stuff that came first.
Which is why when you were talking about reading the Quran, the scale falls from everyone's eyes. It doesn't actually, because if you cherry pick or if you're misguided and people let you read certain verses, it sounds very tolerant.
Yeah.
Okay. So the issue is, all right, Muhammad is he's born in Mecca. He's from Mecca, born around 570, and he starts getting the revelations. I think in 610. Right. He goes to a cave and some being comes out and starts choking him and he starts sweating, and people, there's all theories he's having an epileptic seizure, but his wife Khadijah tells him, no, that's the angel Gabriel. Okay, so that's how it starts. And so the Quran, every verse you see is supposedly Gabriel telling Muhammad to recite Iqra, Quran. That's where we get the word. Okay? So
that's the word.
Yeah.
Recite.
Yeah, Iqra, which now means read, but he was illiterate, so Iqra in next context is recite, and that's what the Quran means, the recital. The recital of Gabriel verbatim telling Muhammad what Allah wants, okay? That's what you're reading in the Quran, supposedly. Okay? Now, I just blanked out. What was I telling you?
You were telling me the history of how he's peaceful.
Oh, yeah, the dual thing. Okay. So the age. All right, so
don't say that to me. I know it all too well.
Yeah,
we're
the
cutting
same
that out
age.
right now.
Sorry.
I'm a fantastic editor. No one's old here because we're the same fucking age.
No, it's not old, but it's all right. Older than I was.
Right,
all right.
Same.
Okay, yeah. All right. So I have these moments now where I'm like deeply involved, and then all of a sudden I'm like, what?
I know. I do the same. You go down a rabbit hole, and you're like, wait, hold on. I started over here, and I'm over there.
And I was so passionate. Yeah. Okay. So the Mecca thing. All right. So the Mecca verses, if you look, the Mecca are okay, and all the verses are revelations from angel, as I said. Now, the Mecca verses, if you look at them, I mean, first of all, the whole Quran is really, in Arabic, it's poetry, and a lot of it is just vague, doesn't make sense, and that's another problem because if you read it as a translation, especially, you're not even going to know what's going on. But amongst Muslims, there's a whole science about this is what the exegesis, which if you're a casual American or English reader, and you won't really know what's going on. Okay, but anyway.
Don't they sort of do that with Christianity, though? It was an interpretation.
Yeah. Well, of course, everyone is involved in exegesis, but that's what I mean. Even in Christianity, it's easy to read it and say, "Oh, this is what it means," but then there's a whole school of thought.
I understand.
By the jurists or the theologians. So anyway, the early verses.
Wow, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. This is where I just.
It's deeper than you thought.
Religion has been a struggle for me because it's been so divisive amongst humanity throughout our existence. But I really try to understand it because it means so much to so many people. Jesus, I can wrap my head around. The teachings of Jesus, I'm like, I like all this stuff. Like, I can't get in. I don't know about the divinity stuff, but like this whole, love your neighbor and don't be a scumbag.
Yeah,
I'm into that. I like that a lot. But the others, this is particularly scary.
The jihad, okay.
The jihad stuff is alarming. And so here we are. I'm peaceful Muhammad now.
Peaceful Muhammad gets all these verses which Muslims love to quote, and he says, you have your religion, I have my religion. Yes. There's no coercion in religion, and also there's no militancy in the Meccan verses. Okay. Why? Well, it just so happens that he basically he was an orphan. He didn't come from the higher noble class. It's the Quraysh. That tribe was dominant, and they're pagans at the time, polytheists. And he comes up with a monotheistic message. Okay, that's his whole thing. And he gets 100 followers in 10 years. All right, but he keeps agitating and annoying these people, so they eventually drive him out. And he does what's called the hijrah. And if I forget, we need to talk about this because Mamdani mentioned the hijrah, which is migration. He migrates to Yathrib, which we call now Medina, okay? That city.
Mamdani talked about this.
And we'll get into that. He goes now to Medina, and now he becomes a political leader. Okay, he basically gets elevated. It's a lot of Jewish tribes, a lot of pagan Arab tribes, and they all coalesce, and he becomes eventually a warlord. And they start going on raids, and he starts winning. And with every win, he gets more plunder and more followers because that's the mentality. Hey, now I believe God's with you because, hey, we're winning. Okay, it was that mentality. It still is, actually.
I was going to say.
Yeah, it still is. And so as much as Muhammad gets stronger and he gets more followers, so now the Medina verses, the revelations are still going, Gabriel's still hanging out with him and telling him what's going on. They become a lot more militant, all right? And now they're no longer sounding about, oh, you have your way and I have my way. It becomes a lot more aggressive and a lot more assertive, always consummate with Muhammad's circumstances, which he's getting stronger all this time. And then, long story short, so the hijrah is 622. This is when he's kicked out of Mecca and he goes to Medina. From 622 until 630, finally he conquers almost the whole of Arabia and Mecca. Okay, he takes over Mecca, which was the
you never hear of him like an Alexander the Great or a Genghis Khan kind of a character.
I mean, because it's still small scale. I mean, this is just Bedouin tribal warfare. It's not massive, Mongolian hordes in that sense, but it's still bloodshed and killing and decapitating and crucifying, But to the Romans and Persians, this was just, like, okay, these Bedouins are doing their thing down there, okay, as usual. So they didn't take too much note of it. Now, here's the thing. If I just read the Quran, what?
This is a bit of a sidebar, and I don't want to take you too far off track, but like, I kind of am personally of the belief that we're all the same. I think we're all, like, whatever brings us to life is the same energy. We're all, if there's a God, an expression of God. All of this appears to me to be an illusion, and I feel like if people just took one giant amount of mushrooms, they would probably see that none of this is like.
But if you're born into it, this is the thing. It's easy for you in your current epistemology to say that. But if this is all you've ever known and everyone around you thinks this way and everyone talks this way, then that becomes the norm. And you're weird to them. You know what I mean?
I'm exceptionally weird.
Yeah.
I'm exceptionally weird. But what I struggle with so much on top of that personal belief that I have is knowing what we know now. So if you took me back a few thousand years ago and we didn't even understand, the fact that we live in a galaxy, let alone a universe, let alone arguably infinite universes, that time and space are completely relative. Like there could be multiple dimensions. Like you're effing around on what Carl Sagan, the pale blue dot floating in this cosmic monster-sized universe. Like this is absurd. And so now that we know this, though, I can't understand why we're still doing it. How are we not looking back going, okay, so they thought that this was the center of the universe here, Earth, and everything was about us, and all of that, we're the center of everything. Now that you know all of this.
But do they? A lot of them are... No. What? Even here in the West, people are now saying we have a flat Earth. I mean...
Very few.
No, I know. But my point is the conspiratorial mind is such, and it's really rife in the Islamic and Arab world especially, that anything the West says is often, oh yeah, they're liars. I'm not saying they believe the Earth is flat. I'm just saying...
Go to the college kids. Go to the kids at Harvard. Go to the kids at Princeton, at these Ivy League schools that are being indoctrinated in this way. I think Mamdani was one of those kids. So they're surely getting an incredible education on physics, I mean, math, astronomy. They know these things. At what point do these young, intelligent minds look at this and say,
well, some do.
Maybe he was schizophrenic?
No,
he's hearing voices.
That's a well-known theory. Yeah.
Is it?
Oh yeah, a lot of people. They think he was. Okay, the theories go from he had epilepsy. From Gabriel was a demon. He was demon possessed. This was actually the go-to Christian explanation of Muhammad. And the epileptic. That's later as people become more secularized because he would fall and foam at the mouth because.
He was epileptic.
Yeah, but it was understood by Muslims. Oh yeah, because of the power of the angels inside him, and he's about to give us a revelation.
Oh God, this poor guy's having a seizure.
Yeah. But let me just finish the two things.
So sorry.
No, it's okay because it's really important.
Okay.
So now he's powerful in Mecca, and all these verses come out, and now it's about warfare. So you have a verse, for example, it's known as the sword verse, and it's one of the latest verses or revelations. Okay. And this one just is, remember we were talking about the Old Testament uses kind of finite language?
Yes.
This is an open-ended command. It says, fight the polytheists wherever you find them, lay in wait, ambush them, kill them, take them as slaves, okay? And another, also a sword verse, 929, it's the same chapter or surah, says, fight the people of the book, who up until then, during the Meccan phases, the people of the book were understood as Christians and Jews.
Got it.
Where, there's some decent words towards them. And this is what people, again, cherry pick and say, oh, he speaks well of Christians and Jews, okay? But now the final verse is fight those people until they are subjugated and they pay tribute, which is called jizya, and feel themselves humbled, okay? So, and now here's the thing. If you look at the Quran, what are we going to follow? I mean, there's this verse that's saying peace. There's this verse saying war. So the jurists, and there's complete consensus about this, came up with this idea called its abrogation, all right, which is in Arabic called an-nasikh wal-mansukh, which means this verse abrogates that verse. And so basically, long story short, the newer verses, the final revelations, abrogate all the old ones. And it just so happens that the newest ones is when Muhammad was at his pinnacle of his career, waging jihad on everyone, okay? But, and now we can come to here, to today's, now what Muslims do, so they understand this, but they also use the same exact paradigm, which is, okay, so when I'm weak, I can talk like the Meccan verses because that's what Muhammad did. But once circumstances change, I can do what Muhammad did, which is now I can go on the offensive. And I'll end this with a final little cute anecdote, which I share often from the Library of Congress. When I used to work there were many Muslims. I used to work in the African Middle Eastern division with Arabic books and other books. And there was a Muslim man there, and we were actually on friendly terms. We kind of respected each other. He knew what I was about, and I knew what. And he was what you would call radical. Okay.
Oh gosh.
But you wouldn't know it. I knew it because I have an eye for that. Okay.
Of course, yeah.
And we would talk often, and sometimes in the cafeteria we would debate Islam, in a friendly debate. And I mentioned all
there
this.
was such a thing, by the way. Well, I want to get to that. Please, sorry, I won't take you off.
I'll finish it real quick. Yeah.
No, don't be quick. Take as much time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're in the cafeteria and we're talking. I'm telling him what I just told you. I'm like, because he's telling me, no, Islam's peace, and he quotes the Meccan verses. So I'm like, yeah. And what about the Medinan verses? And aren't you aware that in as much as Muhammad's circumstances changed, so did his tactics? Okay. And he's like, no. But I kept pushing it, and finally he just smiles at me and goes, "What do you want? I'm in Mecca." Because I'm in the United States and I'm weak and I'm outnumbered. So of course I'm talking about the Meccan verses. You understand the significance?
I do.
Yeah. Okay. And I think there's a lot of Muslims who think that way and who will talk about the Meccan verses because they are following the prophet's example, which is when he was weak. Yeah. Islam is not suicidal. For all the draconian aura about Islam, it's actually very pragmatic. And so you, as a Muslim polity, must wage war on your neighbor if they're weak. If they're not, and it's not advantageous for you and you don't have a good chance of winning, then don't. Okay? So, the popular idea that we have of like all jihadis are psychotic and just ready to blow themselves up, which exists, of course.
Oh, yeah. Everyone says they invite death. They
Yeah.
love death. They don't have our
The
Western...
more dangerous ones are the majority who are smart and bide their time and are involved in what's called Creeping Sharia and Islamist machinations and who use the system against the West and who cry Islamophobia. They're the ones who are really smart. But the ones, to me, ISIS, I always call them very refreshing because for all their atrocities, at least they really call it out. They actually... So Al-Qaeda, I was telling you, that was involved in this massive dissembling campaign, telling the West grievances, but then telling Muslims hate them. ISIS comes up, writes an article, and says why we are fighting you and why. And the first thing they say is because we hate you, because you're an infidel, and it has nothing to do with what you've done to us. So I find that a little bit refreshing because they're at least honest. But most Muslims are, a little more strategic than that, and they're engaged in that entire panoply of strategies that I mentioned.
Okay. Why does Saudi Arabia say that these groups who plan to take down the West, like the Muslim Brotherhood, I was just talking to Brigitte Gabrielle, and she's like, here's their 100-year plan. It's been after 9/11 and all of that. Like this is a DOJ document. It's written out, and we're 35 years into it here in the United States. And you see it. You see it in the schools. You see it in our policies. You see it. Saudi sees it. The UAE is now saying, yeah, we're not going to send kids to go to school in the UK because we don't want them to be radicalized.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, hold on. So are you guys saying, yeah, this whole Ummah thing, of just being loyal to all Muslims, they put the blockade on Qatar because Qatar would not label the Muslim Brotherhood a terror group. Do they see it? Like, are they going, this part of the religion is a no-go anymore?
Do Muslims see this?
Like, why does Saudi label these groups as terrorists?
Right. Okay.
And then the United Kingdom is being brought to its knees.
Yeah. Okay.
What?
No, great question. And I'll explain it as this. And so the Muslim Brotherhood is actually born in Egypt right around 1928. And in its early manifestations, it was engaged in terrorism, but it learned early on, to play the game and, to be more involved in the sort of clandestine, civilizational, creeping Sharia. Okay. Even in Egypt. Okay. And Egypt, think about it. It's born in Egypt and it's banned in Egypt. Okay. It's banned in Saudi Arabia. It's banned in a lot of countries. Okay. So these Muslim countries who pride themselves on being Muslim are banning this group for being a terrorist organization, whereas the West is not doing that and is letting them go in the name of freedom and etc. Now, the reason the Muslim groups do it, it's kind of odd. Why? And these Muslim regimes, the problem is they're always kind of like, they're trying to skirt a fine line. On the one hand, they have to present themselves as good, pious Muslims to be accepted by their own people. And on the other hand, you have groups like the Muslim Brotherhood who are trying to overthrow them because you're not good enough of a Muslim. A lot of the Al-Qaeda figures, for example, and ISIS branched out of the Muslim Brotherhood. They were originally Muslim Brotherhood members, but they got tired of the slow incremental gain, and they wanted some action. They wanted some jihad. Okay,
That's Al-Shabaab,
yeah,
ISIS,
yeah.
Al-Qaeda.
But almost all of them are born from the Muslim Brotherhood. That's the grandfather organization of all of them. Ayman Zawahiri, who became the Al-Qaeda leader, was a Muslim Brotherhood figure.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's again. Like I saw people are all excited in France. There's some motion about kind of outlawing the Muslim Brotherhood. And I'm just thinking now,
I was gonna ask
Muslim countries are doing this and you're not doing it,
Is it?
You don't get it?
We haven't done it. But I have to wonder if part of the reason we have not done that is because we're so deeply in bed with Qatar. You got a $500 million plane they just gave our president. We've got our top air base over there. So on one hand, it's like, no, we're Qatar, they're our allies. But it's like, but not really, but kind of really, but not really. But they house all these terrorists over there, like leaders of Hamas and stuff. But no, they're good negotiators on our behalf. But not really, but really. But then they spend $23 billion lobbying our politicians and soft money on the kids at Harvard and influencing their brains, but not really. So then part of me wonders, are we not labeling the Muslim Brotherhood a terror group in America because of all Qatar's money?
It could well be, because Qatar is definitely a massive supporter of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Right.
Yeah.
That's got to be. And if you need them right now to negotiate peace in Gaza, if you need them when Iran is on the brink right now, I guess I could see why, if I was Trump, I might be like, I don't know that we can make this move right now.
Realpolitik.
Like if
comes
somebody
in the way.
If somebody said that to me, if I'm president of the United States and I'm trying to expand the Abraham Accords, and I need Qatar to play ball, and I understand the loyalty amongst Muslims, despite the fact that Saudi and UAE, Dubai are like, yeah, that group is a no-go.
Yeah.
Egypt, same thing. But I need them to play ball, and they support the Muslim Brotherhood, and they're giving us, on top of it, all this money. I might be like, let's hold off on that for a second until we get all this stuff done, and we can get it done later. I mean, if you feel like it's for the greater good, but I want to go back for just 1 second. You talked to me about how Muhammad had expanded and taken over all of the Arab world, but Jihad went on for 1,400 years, bringing us to now, right? And what's crazy is, like, these Pakistanis, they're Muslim. Oh, the Indian, they're Muslim. Oh, the Somali guys, they're Muslim. I was in Tanzania. It's called Dar el Salam when you land. I'm like, okay, everything's in Arabic. It's Muslim. Hold on. I mean, he was very successful. It's everywhere.
We need to talk about that. Yeah. So this is what I've always found fascinating. This is what I've always found most people don't know about. And this will answer, I think, a lot of things, because all your questions, which are good and which I've asked myself, the problem with them is a lot of people try to answer it from, okay, let's look at the scriptures, let's look at the Quran. And we've done that, and I think that's legitimate. I do that all the time. But the weakness in that and how people use it is exactly as you said. Well, the Bible says that. The Bible has violence. Why are you pinning it on Muslims? Okay, so that's always been the game.
That's the top.
Yeah. That's always been the game. So for me, a long time ago, I said, okay, let's put the scriptures aside. Let's see what really happened. What did Muslims do? Now, the narrative amongst, because I was in higher academia and I was involved and I've read their books, is basically Islam in the medieval era was this beacon of light and tolerance, and Europe was backwards and savage, and the Crusades that started all the problems. Okay, so let me give you a quick corrective of what really happened, which is the antithesis of what you've been told. All right, so Muhammad does his thing. Muhammad dies in 632. A lot of the Arabians try to break away, and then the first caliph, which means successor of Muhammad, the political leader.
Got it.
He wages wars on the apostates, brings them back in the fold. Okay.
The apostates, the people trying to leave.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. 634. 2 years later, he dies, and now you have the second caliph, Omar. And this is the traditional opening of the Arab conquests, as they're known historically. So, now, what does the world look like in the 7th century? And this is what most, I know, Americans, maybe Westerners, don't get it. They always think of North Africa, Egypt, and Syria, and the Middle East, and Morocco as always having been, if not Islamic, Eastern, and different. They actually weren't. And that was the heart of the Christian world in the 7th century. If you looked at all of Christendom, we always just think of Europe. Okay, yeah, it was in Europe, but the bulk of it, the older part of it, the more important, sophisticated part, was what we call the Arab world today. It was Egypt, it was Greater Syria, which encompassed, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, Iraq part. It was Asia Minor, Turkey. And that's where, Paul sends most of his letters to that place, okay? This is where Christianity was embedded. This is why the first Roman emperor who became Christian, Constantine, moved to the east, because that's where the Christian world was, okay? So, in 1 century after Muhammad's death, 632, by 732, Muslims have conquered, if you look at the map, and other historians have said this, literally 3/4 of the Christian world through violent jihad. They've conquered Egypt, which is one of the most profoundly Christian nations. They conquered Syria. They conquered, so if you go all throughout the West, Libya, Tunisia, Morocco, Algeria. They went into Spain in 711 and conquered Spain. I give you the year 732, 1 century after Muhammad, because that's the year they're in the middle of France, and that's the Battle of Tours. It's a famous battle where they're finally halted, okay? So, and then there's a new iteration a few centuries later, the Turks. Now they become Muslim, they become the standard bearers of jihad, and they go, and now they conquer Constantinople, they conquer the Balkans, Southeast Europe, and more than a millennium after Muhammad, they're at Vienna in 1683, all right? And so if you really look at a map, okay, Islam swallowed up most of Christendom, as it was known at the time, and it continued. People don't realize that there were so many European slaves being enslaved.
Slavic.
Millions.
Slav.
Yeah. Not just them. They would go to Iceland. As far as distant Iceland, they went and would get slaves from there. They had a little island called Lundy right off of Britain, and they would actually use it to get slaves from England. And according to conservative estimates, in just the 16th century, you had 1.25 million European slaves being sold, and the conditions, I mean, really are horrific because of that old hatred. It's not just you're my slave. I have contempt for you.
Right.
Okay. And America. So to cap off this little historical thing.
Gosh, okay.
America's very first war as a nation after independence is with Muslims talking and thinking exactly the same way. And let me just, before I say that, let me tell you this. What historians don't tell you is, what they do is they drop the Islam thing, and they'll say, okay, the Arabs, the Saracens, the Moors, the Turks, the Seljuks, the Ottomans, the Tatars, they'll never talk about Islam. Okay, they'll just give you these national iterations and identities. And so from a secular mind, it's like, okay, different groups fighting different groups. If you do what I've done, and especially in one of my books, Sword and Scimitar, this is where I talk about this deep history and looked at the original sources. All those Muslim groups, the national groups, the Turks and Arabs, they identified themselves first and foremost as Muslims, and they rationalized why they were waging war, because it was jihad, and we are commanded to do this. All right. Yep. So when you hear someone saying, "Oh, ISIS is hijacking Islam," no, we have 14 centuries of records telling us that's exactly how ISIS is basically emulating the early Muslims to a T. So when you see all the graphic stuff they do and the hateful speech, that's actually what the historical record relays for 14 centuries. And so go back to America to cap it off. Their very first war after independence is with those Muslims who are saying the same thing. So what happened is they started, after America broke away from Britain, Britain was paying tribute to the Barbary pirates, the same ones who had enslaved the Icelandic people and all that. They were paying them tribute to just leave our vessels alone. All right, it was, and the Muslims took it. It's jizya, it's tribute.
Tax.
When America broke away from Britain, America was no longer covered by that jizya. They're enemies now, and the Muslims, when they got wind of that, started attacking American vessels in the right around 1780s. Okay.
I have never even heard of this.
Oh well, it gets better.
I'm so embarraed.
No, it's okay.
I
Well, no, you shouldn't be embarrassed.
No idea.
The system doesn't want you to know this. That's why you haven't heard it. Okay, so they start enslaving American soldiers, sailors, and torturing them and engaging in a lot of horrific things. Okay, and then finally Thomas Jefferson and John Adams go and meet one of the ambassadors of Barbary. All right, and we have the letter from Jefferson. He writes to Jefferson Jefferson writes a meeting to Congress. I have it in my book, the full letter. And he says, okay, we told him, we said, we consider everyone our friend. Why can't we just have trade and get along? What did we do to you? And Jefferson writes, and the ambassador told us that it is in their Quran that they must wage war and wait in ambush and enslave all who reject the authority of Allah, etc., etc. And the way Thomas Jefferson wrote that, in my mind, he's paraphrasing Quran 9:5, which I told you is the sword verse, which literally says, wait in ambush for them, enslave them, and attack them. So that's what the ambassador told him. And of course, Thomas Jefferson, this great enlightened paragon, doesn't understand this backwards Islamic jihad stuff. Okay, so to him, it's so weird. But it's just, I just find it remarkable.
I find it so weird. Not because I'm super enlightened, or I just find it like unthinkable.
So from the very start, you have Muslims preaching, saying it's because of jihad, it's because we have to war on them, and they did war. They conquered 3/4 of Europe. So Christian Europe at the time, or the Christian world, it had 5 major centers, 5 seas. Right. One is Rome. The other 4 were all in the east. It was Alexandria and Antioch, Jerusalem, and later Constantinople. All 4 got swallowed up. We don't hear about that. I'll give you an example of what the academics teach. There's a famous professor. I used to go to Georgetown University. His name's John Esposito. And back in the day, in early 2000, this guy was like the Don. The intelligent community would go to him for information about Islam, etc. He has a book called Islam, the Straight Path, and I've quoted this so many times that I've memorized it, right? He writes this: 5 centuries of peaceful coexistence between Muslims and Christians elapsed before an imperial papal power play led to a series of so-called holy wars that have left a legacy of enduring mistrust. So what he's saying is that from the dawn of
Christians broke the contract.
From the dawn of Islam up until the First Crusade in 1095, okay? That period where Muslims conquered 3/4
yes,
and tortured and tortured and killed and burned churches. He calls that peaceful coexistence until the First Crusade. And while we're at it, the First Crusade, again, the big lie nobody tells you, is right before it. I've already explained to you, right, what was happening. But right before it was a really new iteration. It was the Seljuk Turks. And what they were doing to Christians was horrific, okay? They were, we can get into the graphic details, but there was always pilgrims from Europe going to the Holy Land. And they would rape them, and they would murder them, and pull their intestines out, and they would burn churches, and this. And if you look at what they called, why Pope Urban called the First Crusade, that's what he says. He talks about that. But they don't tell you again that. They make it sound like, oh yeah, it was some colonial venture to go attack poor brown Muslims who never did anything to harm anyone.
That is the narrative.
Yeah, I know.
It's funny. I was on Piers Morgan right after Bondi. By the way, then you've got that one Muslim guy that takes down the other 2 Muslims. So it's like, I could kiss. I donated to that guy's GoFundMe. I was like, oh my God. It's very hard to hold in your head, obviously, because we love to just make things as people, black and white. It's good, it's bad.
Yeah.
The nuance is a very tough place to live. So we end up in this conversation, and I'm saying, well, I think what's happening is it's the kind of the radicals, which now I know you don't like, but that's how I was kind of perceiving it. And anyway, Wajahat Ali, who's Muslim, is like, oh, you're a white nationalist. I'm like, I'm Arab, right? Like, just to be clear, like, is that a white nationalist?
Wait, you're Arab?
I'm Arab.
How are you
I'm
Arab?
Lebanese and Syrian, and
really?
yeah.
Okay.
And 33% Austrian, or I'm sorry, Russian Jew.
Oh, okay. So you're a kinswoman, okay.
I'm Arab.
Yeah.
So, long story short, I reach out to him on DM. I'm like, listen, I don't, because they're like, oh, there's no percentage of Islam that's radical. That's not true. These are false statistics. This is a narrative that you guys have used, us white nationalists, to go after us poor brown Muslims. And I said to him, I'm going to post it in this friggin', I go, listen, I don't understand what you're talking about. These numbers that I pulled, this is from the Biden administration's intelligence agencies. But come and explain to me, what do you mean? I genuinely want to hear your side. I want to know, what am I getting wrong? How am I, promoting prejudice against you? Never responded.
Of course not.
Never. I'm like, tell me what I got wrong. I'm here for it. I want to get it right. I want to give you an audience to shame me on my show because I don't want to screw it up. And I meant every word of it. Never answer.
Well, what does that tell you?
Right. They never answer.
No,
they will not come on.
No.
It is impossible to get them to come on. And Cenk Uygur may, but he's come on for other things. He may, but okay. So now here's really where we are. Is it too late for Europe? And what's concerning you over the next 20 years? What needs to happen?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, which I've been actually asked a lot about and been thinking a lot about. And and people, they call me Denethor. I don't know if you're familiar with Lord of the Rings. Denethor is this character. He's a king, and he gives up and says, "We're all gonna die. Go kill yourself," because I sounded pessimistic. But,
I wonder why.
Yeah. But what I wanted people, because I hate when people are just overly optimistic. Oh yeah, we got this. We'll figure it out. No, man, time's running out. All right, and here's what's going on. So you have in Europe, you have countries who nipped it in the bud. Okay, Hungary, Poland, Czechoslovakia. You know what they said? We don't want Muslim migrants, and they were out front. They were open about it, especially Hungary. He said he actually invoked the logic I'm giving. He said we've lived under their Islamic rule. We were conquered by the Ottomans for 150 years. We know what it's like, and no thanks. Okay, so that was his logic, and he was so demonized for it. He's so hated for it.
I probably would have been like, "Oh, you're a Muslim." Ooh.
Yeah.
Like,
so he's like a dirty word in Europe. Oh, he's a horrible.
Wow.
But now look at it. He said this. He did this like 10 years ago when the migrant crisis was at its peak, and of course Western Europe and the EU were like, no, we're going to take in as many as we can, etc., etc. Now here's the problem. If you know anything, if you look at Western Europe, especially wherever you have large Muslim groups, you have a lot of criminality. You have a lot of problems. You have segregation. You have ghettoization. You have the host society. The natives are afraid to go out. The women are afraid to be raped. Okay,
we've heard this now.
Yeah. It's going on all the time.
Yeah.
Right. And now here's the problem. A lot of these Western European countries talk like, well, we're going to get tough on immigration. We're going to stop it. And what they don't seem to understand is you can stop it today. You still have a problem because you've got like anywhere from 8 to 12% Muslim populations who are outbreeding you. So for example, according to a Pew poll in Germany, by 2050, that's less than 25 years, okay? By 2050, without any more migration, they expect Muslims to be like over 20%, okay? So what will be in 2075? What will be, in 2100? Okay, same thing for France and the UK. So I don't think people understand that it's
the UK is terrifying.
Oh,
because you aren't allowed to say anything.
Exactly, because the government is enabling and supporting and the Muslims and shutting you down.
Yes, like that's the part where you've got like Muslims in the street, bring down the West and. All of this,
and then you have a Brit waving a British flag, and he gets attacked by the police.
The police go and take him to jail for a Facebook post.
I just saw a video of a woman walking her dog, a British woman, but it's a Muslim community, and the police stopped her and forcibly moved her out because Muslims don't like dogs.
You're not going that way. Excuse me. Guys, 2 of you, please. 2 of you, straight away. What?
No. They're called lots of things. As usual.
To do with being a Nazi, it's got nothing to do with being anyone. You just don't want to pay for you to live in there.
There's a hysterical post that went viral of a British guy talking about how, I think it was Japan. He's like, imagine if we went to Japan. It was like, we're going to need you to change out all this sushi for, bangers and mash. No, you won't. You won't do that. What do you mean you're not going to do? And we're going to need you to pay for our housing and our health care. And it sounds so absurd.
Everything here is a little bit too Chinese. All the restaurants and cafes and that, for a start, way too many noodles. I don't eat noodles. I eat pie and mash, ham, egg and chips. I mean, you need to cater to me, yeah? No, I don't think you understand. I'm not from here, okay? I left the UK because I didn't like it, all right? So I need you to change everything to make it feel like it's the UK, yeah? Still no, is it? Right, okay. Well, also, I can't really work at the minute. Anxiety, yeah. So when do I get my money? Obviously, got a few kids at home and all, so they're going to need to come here. That's a no-brainer. Why do you keep saying no? I've noticed as well, there's a lot of Chinese people here as well, isn't it? So I was thinking we could get loads of me over here and we have our own little area and then you lot can just fuck off. Does that sound good? It doesn't. Well, no, hear me out, because I was thinking if we get loads of me over here, then we can vote in, one of me to be in charge, and then we can all start telling you lot how to live. And after that, I was going to organise some marches where we go through the streets chanting anti-Chinese sentiments. So obviously you'll need to protect us while we do that. That's a no as well, is it? Oh. And finally, I am here illegally. Didn't respect the rules on that one. So do I just choose any hotel, or have you got certain prison?
I'm glad you bring this up, because this is really going to show you how desensitized Western people have been incrementally conditioned, because everything that the West goes through, and I've said this before, what you're describing, if you try to imagine this in any other civilization, it's mind-boggling. And the reason is because why is it? Even a dumb woke person in the West will find what you said weird. Like, of course, Americans can't go tell the Japanese to give them, but for some reason they're convinced it's their job to do that to everybody, to just lay down prostrate, and I have to suppress my culture, my heritage, my religion to appease you. It's very interesting because so on the one hand, instinctively, if they look at any other culture, they'll agree. They'll say, yeah, that's crazy. Like, what, why are Chinese people going to, Turkey, and they've risen to the top and they've made the Turks, suppress them? It would be weird. It would be like, that's colonization.
Unheard of, right? Yeah.
But when it's happening right under their nose, it's like, oh no, we're celebrating multiculturalism
because it's
diversity.
racist.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Exactly.
It's racist.
Yeah.
It's
but it's not racist for anyone else.
No. It's it's like when white people do it, it's imperialism.
Yeah.
And okay, so last question, because you've written 12 books and dozens and dozens of articles, and you have an incredible YouTube channel, and I want everyone to go check all of that out. But what do we do? I'm trying to kind of, it's scary. Sorry, before we get to the what do we do, are you afraid? And I ask you this because, like, I remember Charlie Hebdo in Paris, where the cartoonists kind of made fun of Muhammad, and they came in there and killed 12 people. I remember the Satanic Verses and what happened to Salman Rushdie. Stabbed, not to death, but like I wrote a book about it. I think
he lost his eye or something.
Lost his eye, called Knife. I mean, even doing these podcasts, I'm like, oh man. My wife lived in Kuwait, and she's like, babe, please stop talking about it. I'm like, well, I'm no one to talk about it compared to everyone else so if they go on this, they're going to go after you.
Yeah, I know.
They're going to go after, Brigitte Gabrielle. Are you scared?
I think I'm desensitized at this point. I kind of fell into this. I started off like an academic who was involved in this from a very historical point of view. And then I just fell into it due to circumstances, because it all happened in 9/11. And then I was at Georgetown University, which was a leading, university dealing with Arab and Islamic studies. Then I was at the Library of Congress. So I sort of come from a very sort of professional academic background, and my face was out in the open. I had no problem with it. But then I started, the more I delved and the more I spoke, the more I was saying what people didn't want. You'd be surprised if you go back to 2007. I was on CNN. I was on, NPR, like all these places. But then, my message, wasn't.
And they've taken money from Qatar, though.
Yeah.
They have.
Yeah. So that got cut out. But at this point, I mean, it's just, I think it's an important thing to be said. This is a very civilizational, existential moment. And, one person's life is not enough to just stop it all.
What do we do? I'm watching this. What do I do?
Well, this is a good start. We're talking about this. I always say, look, before actions, you have to have the proper paradigm in your head.
Informed.
Yeah, so that's why my mission is mostly what we're doing right now, which is because I still know a lot of people don't get it. Okay.
Oh no.
Yeah, obviously the majority.
No.
Right. So we're still in this, learning phase. I believe if everyone gets it, or at least a majority, then it will all fall into place. I'll give you an example. You're familiar with these Sharia hearings.
Yes.
Okay, which is, I think it's good. On the one hand, it's good because, people are becoming critical and they're saying, okay, Islam's okay, but you can't have this Sharia. Okay, that's a good step, and I'm glad that's happening. But what people are going to eventually learn as we progress is, guess what? Sharia and Islam are inexplicable, or are inseparable.
Yeah.
So I see someone like Greg Abbott, Texas governor, saying like Sharia has no place here in Texas, and I've seen Bush say things. Well, In my mind, in a Muslim's mind, what you're saying is Islam has no place here. Because there is no Islam without Sharia.
Right.
So, hopefully as, people learn more and more and they connect the dots, you start understanding, well, maybe Islam isn't just a religion. Maybe it's a political ideology, which is in conflict with the Constitution.
That is the thing, because I am a firm believer. Like, I am a classic liberal in that. Like, I don't care who you pray to.
Libertarian.
Right?
Right?
I don't care who you love.
Yeah.
I don't care. That is you. But peace be upon you. This is how I would be like, oh, I relate to that. To you, your religion. To me, mine. Your way of life. Me, mine. Like, all of that. I'm like, yeah, dig it. Yes. And then, the later Muhammad, I'm like, no. Oh, my God, no. So it would be so antithetical for me to say, like, I don't want you being Muslim in my country.
Yeah.
The assimilation. The anti-West, the subjugation of the infidel.
I told you the Muslim is forbidden from assimilating. I mean, it's already hard enough for people to assimilate who are from a different culture, But in Islam, and this is what I'm saying, Muhammad took tribalism and deified it. It's no longer it's hard enough to get a tribal, person to become Westernized.
Oh my God.
Right?
Yeah.
But imagine in his mind, it's also a part of my religion. I can't become Westernized. I have to hate these people. This is what makes this really insurmountable and what makes really Islam distinctive amongst other cultures and religions.
Raymond, I could literally keep you probably for 2 days. Okay, you have, I think, 12 books and a friggin' YouTube channel. Where do people start with your content? How do they learn more? Because there's a lot to know, obviously.
Yeah, I have several books, and I would start actually with the more recent, the three that I call them my trilogy. It's my last 3 books, which are Sword and Scimitar, 14 Centuries of War Between Islam and the West, and that really covers what we've been talking about. It really shows you, forget about doctrine. I spend like a short intro about doctrine and the Quran. But then I say, okay, so let's see what happened. And lo and behold, history is one long manifestation of the doctrine. So it is a real thing. But I have other books like Defenders of the West, which talks about how European men fought back, a lot of young guys get inspired by that because they've been taught to just be doormats, especially if they're Christians. My job is to just fall down and let everyone, wipe their feet on me.
Yeah.
And I have my newest book, which came out just 2 months ago, it's called The Two Swords of Christ, and it deals with the military orders, the Templars and the Hospitallers. Okay. Yeah. And my YouTube channel, please visit that. Thanks for mentioning it. I think it's just my name, but the logo is the Holy War channel because that's what I talk about, Jihad and Crusades. And I have a Substack as well.
I didn't know that.
Finally, I got to it. It's great.
Yeah. Okay, I'll link to it, guys.
Thank you. And all those are social media. I have things, and they're on my website, RaymondIbrahim.com. But I'm not a very social media active guy, but I try.
Okay, I'm definitely subscribing to the Substack. I think I'm going to start on Sword and Scimitar.
That's the best one to start with, actually. It's the first one, and it's the most, it'll give you really the panoramic view of what happened between the West and Islam.
Is this whole concept of, you give your life, and in the afterlife, there's a bunch of virgins, is that real, or is that?
Yeah, it's real.
That's in the Quran.
Yeah, 72 virgins.
That's in the Quran.
In the Quran, the virgins are mentioned. They're called the Huris, and they're described as basically supernatural women, big-bosomed, and their name comes from their very dark iris, black eyes, and whatnot. Huris, and they are created for the express purpose of the sexual gratification of Allah's favorites, His martyrs. And okay, so now then the hadith gets into the gory details, which is or graphic details, which is the sex is amazing, and your penis never goes flat, and all you do is copulate with these beautiful women. And
that's in this book.
Not in the Quran, it's in the hadith, but it's considered canonical. It's considered part of the literature. So
okay, so the hadith is a separate book.
The hadith means the narrations of people who heard Muhammad say this.
Oh, like the prophets kind of a thing.
Yeah. It's the secondary book to the Quran. They're called the twin pillars of Islam. So how do we know what we do? Well, the Quran and the Hadith. And then from the Hadith, you get what's called the Sunnah, which means the example, okay? But anyway, all that is, and even though you get to de-virginize them, but then the hymen grows back, so you can do it again. I mean, I know this sounds absurd, but it's in the books, and the Muslims talk about it. And that doesn't mean they all believe it, like we said, or, you know, but I mean, it's in their books.
I cannot thank you enough. You're
Oh,
wonderful.
thank you for having me,
really
Jillian. I appreciate it. Yeah, yeah.